I'm sitting in my bathroom right now, staring at two pink lines on a pregnancy test, and I can't stop shaking. Not because I'm unprepared, not because this baby isn't wanted, but because 3 hours ago, my parents offered me $1 million to terminate this pregnancy. $1 million. And when I said no, when I told them this baby was non-negotiable, my mother looked at me with pure terror in her eyes and said 5 words that are still echoing in my head. Then you've killed us all, Jenny. You're probably thinking this is about money, about inheritance, about family drama. It's not. It's about something so much stranger, so much darker, that even now, even after finding the medical files, the genetic reports, the decades of lies, I can barely wrap my mind around it. 3 days ago, I broke into my parents' basement and found a locked filing cabinet. Inside were medical records, documenting a pattern that goes back 5 generations. Every woman in my family who had a daughter went insane. Not metaphorically, not postpartum depression insane, actually, violently, institutionalized insane. My grandmother tried to kill my mother when she was 2 years old. My great-grandmother died in a psychiatric facility. My mother's sister slit her own wrists in front of her daughter. And the genetic testing I found, it shows I carry the same mutation they all did, a mutation that's been dormant in my DNA for 35 years. Until now, until this pregnancy, until I'm carrying a daughter. But here's what makes this absolutely terrifying. It's not just a genetic condition. It's something the doctors can't fully explain. Something that happens specifically when we carry daughters. Our brains literally change. New neural structures develop. We become something other than what we were. And in every documented case in my family's history, that transformation has ended in tragedy. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I discovered all of this. How 17 years of my life have been a carefully orchestrated manipulation. How the $10,000 a year I've been accepting since I turned 18 was never about supporting my education or helping with expenses. It was payment for preventing exactly this moment. Let me tell you the story of how I ended up here, holding a positive pregnancy test, knowing that in approximately 6 months I'll give birth to a daughter who might transform me into something I don't recognize. But first, let me tell you about 3 days ago, about the filing cabinet, about what I found. My parents left for Boston on Tuesday morning. Family emergency, they said. My father's cousin was sick. They'd be gone for a week, maybe 2. Could I water their plants and check their mail? I said yes, of course. I'm a good daughter. I've always been a good daughter. Understanding, accommodating, easy. I drove to their house on Wednesday afternoon. It's a modest 2-story in the suburbs, the same house I grew up in. I have my own key. I've had it since college. I let myself in, collected the mail from the porch, and went inside to water the plants in the living room. That should have been it. Water the plants, check the mail, leave. But as I was heading out, I remembered my mother mentioning that the washer in the basement had been making strange noises. She'd asked me to run a load just to make sure it still worked. So I went down to the basement. And that's when I saw it. A filing cabinet I'd never noticed before, tucked in the corner behind old Christmas decorations. It had a padlock on it, a serious padlock, the kind you put on storage units or gym lockers, the kind that says, "Do not open." I should have left it alone. I should have minded my own business, watered the plants, and gone home to my husband Ryan and our quiet, normal life. But something about that padlock bothered me. What could possibly be in a basement filing cabinet that required that level of security? I found bolt cutters in the garage. It took me 15 minutes to cut through the lock, my hands shaking the whole time, a voice in my head screaming that I was violating my parents' privacy, that I was crossing a line, but I couldn't stop. Something was pulling me forward. Some instinct that knew, even before I saw what was inside, that this filing cabinet held answers to questions I didn't even know I'd been asking. The top drawer was full of medical files, Thick manila folders, organized by name. I saw my grandmother's name, Dorothy Mitchell, my great-grandmother, Catherine Mitchell, my mother's sister, the aunt who died in a car accident when I was 5, Rebecca Mitchell. I pulled out my grandmother's file first. It was substantial, at least 2 inches thick. Inside were hospital records, psychiatric evaluations, commitment papers. I read the first page, then the second, then the third, my stomach dropping with each new detail. Dorothy Mitchell, age 24, admitted to County Psychiatric Hospital following a violent episode during which she attempted to harm her infant daughter. Patient reports hearing voices, experiencing visual hallucinations, and suffering from paranoid delusions. Prior to the birth of her daughter 16 months ago, patient exhibited no psychiatric symptoms and was, by all accounts, mentally healthy. 16 months after my mother was born, my grandmother went insane, violently insane. The records described her restraints, her sedation, her decline. She spent 12 years in that hospital before dying of complications from the medications they used to control her. I set that file aside with trembling hands and reached for the next one. Rebecca Mitchell, my mother's sister. The story was eerily similar. Normal, healthy, successful lawyer. Got pregnant at 29, had a daughter. 18 months later, she was admitted to a psychiatric facility after trying to drown her own child in the bathtub. She killed herself 3 weeks later. And then I found Catherine Mitchell, my great-grandmother. Same pattern, same timeline. Daughter born, 20 months pass, complete psychological break, institutionalization, death. I kept pulling files. Great-great-grandmother, great-great-great-grandmother. The pattern went back 5 generations, maybe more. Women who were fine until they had daughters. Women who deteriorated rapidly afterward. Women who ended up institutionalized, medicated, or dead. But not all the files were old historical records. There was one with my name on it. Jenny Mitchell, age 35, current. Inside was a genetic testing report dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, right after I'd told my parents Ryan and I were trying for a baby. The report was full of medical terminology I didn't understand, but certain phrases jumped out. Confirmed carrier of X-linked dominant mutation, high risk for neurological manifestation, recommend genetic counseling before pregnancy. And then, in my mother's handwriting in red pen along the margin, Jenny must not have daughters under any circumstances. The mutation is active. If she carries a girl, we'll lose her the way we lost everyone else. I sat on that basement floor for I don't know how long, surrounded by files, trying to process what I was reading. My family had a genetic condition, a condition that only manifested in women who had daughters, a condition that caused rapid onset psychiatric symptoms, violence, deterioration, and I was a carrier. But the more I read, the less sense it made. Genetic conditions don't work this way. They don't stay dormant until a specific trigger. They don't only affect women who give birth to daughters. That's not how DNA functions. Unless it wasn't purely genetic, unless there was something else, something the medical community hadn't identified because the pattern was so rare, so specific, so impossible. I kept digging through the files, and that's when I found it. The contract. It was in a clear plastic sleeve, like it had been recently reviewed. Heavy paper, legal letterhead. Agreement between Jenny Louise Mitchell and Thomas and Margaret Mitchell, dated the 18th of June, 2008. The 18th of June, 2008. 3 days after my 18th birthday. I pulled it out and read it. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time, the words sank in deeper, the betrayal cutting sharper. The agreement stated that I, Jenny Mitchell, would receive $10,000 per year, payable quarterly, for maintaining reproductive prevention measures and providing quarterly documentation from a medical provider confirming compliance. The agreement would remain in effect indefinitely or until I chose to terminate it, at which point all future payments would cease. In simpler terms, my parents would pay me $10,000 a year to stay on birth control, and I had to prove it every 3 months or the money stopped. I remembered signing that contract. I remembered the conversation over dinner at Luigi's, the Italian place we always went for celebrations. My father pulling out the envelope, explaining that they wanted to support me through college but needed to ensure I was being responsible. The money had seemed like a gift, a way to help with expenses. The conditions had seemed reasonable. I was 18, about to start at a big university. Of course, they wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get pregnant and derail my education. But it had never been about education. It had been about preventing this exact moment, preventing me from carrying a daughter, preventing the genetic time bomb they believed I carried from ever activating. I sat on that cold basement floor, surrounded by evidence of a 17-year manipulation, and I felt rage like I'd never experienced before. Not just at the lie, but at the theft. They'd stolen 17 years of informed choice from me, 17 years when I could have been researching this condition, consulting specialists, making my own decisions about my reproductive future. Instead, they'd paid me to remain ignorant and compliant. I took photos of everything, every medical record, every genetic report, every page of that contract. Then I carefully put it all back, closed the drawers, and drove home. Ryan was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in. He took one look at my face and put down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. What happened? I showed him everything. The photos on my phone, the medical records, the genetic reports, the contract. He read it all in silence, his expression growing darker with each swipe. "This is insane," he said finally. "Your parents have been paying you to not get pregnant for 17 years. And this genetic condition, is it real? Is this actually something you need to worry about?" "I don't know. That's what I need to find out." I called my obgyn first thing the next morning. Dr. Harrison had been my doctor for 8 years. She knew me, knew my history, or at least I thought she did. "I need to see my medical records," I told her receptionist. "All of them, especially anything from the past few years that might have been requested by anyone other than me." The records arrived by secure email that afternoon, and there it was, buried in the notes. 3 weeks ago, my mother had requested a comprehensive genetic screening panel on me. She'd used forged consent forms, created fake authorizations. The results had been sent directly to her email address. I called Dr. Harrison directly, bypassing the receptionist. "Did you run genetic testing on me without my knowledge?" There was a long pause. "I'm looking at your file now. Yes, it appears a panel was ordered. I don't remember authorizing it, but the consent form has your signature." "That's not my signature. My mother forged it." "Oh, God. Jenny, I'm so sorry. This is a serious HIPAA violation. I'll report this immediately to our compliance office." What did the results show? Another pause. I really shouldn't share this without proper authorization. "It's my genetic information, please," she sighed. "You're a carrier for a very rare X-linked mutation. It's associated with a neurological condition that, honestly, Jenny, there's not much research on it. Only a handful of documented cases. But from what I can see, it seems to affect neural development in specific circumstances." "What circumstances?" "The literature is unclear, but there's a pattern in the case studies. It seems to manifest or worsen in women after they give birth to daughters." My blood ran cold. "Is it treatable?" "I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. The condition is so rare that there hasn't been enough research. But Jenny, I really think you should see a genetic counselor. Someone who specializes in rare hereditary conditions. They can help you understand what this means, what your options are." I made an appointment with a genetic counselor for the following week. But by then, everything had already changed. Because that night, I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. Ryan and I had been trying for 3 months. Not aggressively, just not preventing. We'd talked about it for over a year. We wanted kids. We were in our mid-30s. It was time. I'd gone off birth control in August. It was now November. I was pregnant. The test sat on the bathroom counter while Ryan and I stared at it, both of us thinking the same thing. My parents, the contract, the genetic mutation, the pattern of women going insane after having daughters. "We don't know if it's a girl," Ryan said finally. "It could be a boy, or it could be a girl. And if it is, we'll figure it out, together. This isn't the 1950s, Jenny. We have modern medicine, psychiatric care, genetic counseling. Whatever your grandmother and great-grandmother went through, it doesn't have to be your fate." I wanted to believe him, but I kept thinking about those medical records, about my grandmother trying to kill my mother, about my aunt slitting her wrists, about the pattern that had repeated generation after generation. We decided not to tell my parents. Not yet. Not until we knew more. Not until we'd seen the genetic counselor and understood what we were dealing with. But then my parents came home early from Boston. Thursday afternoon, 3 days after I'd broken into their filing cabinet, they showed up at our apartment without calling first. My mother looked terrible. Pale, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. My father kept his hand on her elbow, steadying her. "We need to talk," my mother said. "Can we come in?" We sat in our living room, me and Ryan on the couch, my parents in the armchairs. My mother kept wringing her hands. My father stared at the floor. "There's something we need to tell you," my mother began. "Something we should have told you years ago, but we were trying to protect you. We thought if we could just prevent it from ever being an issue." "I know," I said quietly. She looked up, startled. "What?" "I know about the genetic mutation. I know about the contract. I know about what happened to Grandma Dorothy and Aunt Rebecca. I found the files in your basement." My mother's face went white. "You broke into our filing cabinet? You forged my signature to run genetic tests. I think we're even. Jenny, you don't understand." "Then explain it to me. Explain why you've been paying me for 17 years to prevent something you never told me about. Explain why you stole my right to make informed choices about my own body." My father finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Because we've watched too many women in this family lose their minds. We've buried too many people. We thought if we could just keep you from having daughters, you'd be safe. You'd be the one who broke the cycle." "But I'm pregnant," I said. The words hung in the air. My mother made a small, wounded sound. My father closed his eyes. "Please tell me it's not true," my mother whispered. "It's true. About 6 weeks along." "You have to terminate," she said immediately. "Jenny, I'm not asking. I'm begging. You have to end this pregnancy. I'm not doing that. You don't understand what you're risking. You think this is just about postpartum depression or anxiety? It's not. This is a complete personality change. This is violence and psychosis and losing yourself entirely. I've seen it happen. I watched it happen to my mother. I watched it happen to my sister. I will not watch it happen to you." "What if the baby's a boy?" Ryan asked. "Then there's no problem, right? This condition only affects women who have daughters." My parents exchanged a look. "Is that true?" I pressed. "If it's a boy, I'm safe." "Theoretically," my father said carefully. "In every documented case, the condition has only manifested after the birth of daughters. But Jenny, we can't be certain." "Then we'll find out the sex. If it's a boy, there's nothing to worry about. If it's a girl." I hesitated. "If it's a girl, we'll figure it out then." "There's nothing to figure out," my mother shouted. "If it's a girl, you'll deteriorate just like everyone else. Your brain will change, you'll develop symptoms, and eventually you'll become someone else entirely, someone dangerous. Is that what you want? To put yourself and your child at risk?" "I want to understand what I'm dealing with. I want actual medical information, not just fear and family stories. And I want you to respect that this is my decision, not yours." "We'll give you money," my father said suddenly. "Whatever you need. $1 million to terminate now and start over with IVF, sex selection, guarantee a boy. You and Ryan can still have children, just not this one. Not if there's any chance it's a girl. $1 million, I repeated, stunned. You're offering me $1 million to abort my baby. To save your life, my mother said fiercely. Yes, absolutely, without hesitation. Get out, I said quietly. Jenny, get out of my house, now. They left. My mother was crying. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years. I sat on that couch after they were gone, and I felt nothing. Numb, completely detached from reality. We need more information, Ryan said finally. Before we make any decisions, we need to actually understand what this condition is, what the real risks are. Your parents are operating from fear and trauma. We need to operate from facts. He was right, of course. But I couldn't shake the image of my grandmother, restrained in a psychiatric hospital. My aunt, violent and delusional. 5 generations of women who had all followed the same pattern. Was I next? Let me take you back now. Back to where this all began. Back to June 2008, 3 days after my 18th birthday, when I signed a contract that would shape the next 17 years of my life without understanding what it really meant. I graduated from high school in June 2008. I was heading to UCLA in the fall, excited and terrified in equal measure. My parents took me to Luigi's to celebrate, the same restaurant where we'd celebrated every milestone birthdays, good report cards, my driver's license. Over dessert, my father pulled out a manila envelope. Jenny, your mother and I have been talking about your future. College is expensive, and we know you'll have other expenses too. Living costs, books, maybe some travel. We want to help you. I set down my fork, immediately suspicious. My parents weren't wealthy. We were solidly middle class. They'd saved for my college tuition, but there was never extra money for luxuries. Help me how? We'd like to give you $10,000 a year, my mother said. Starting now, continuing through college and beyond. My eyes widened. $10,000 was an enormous amount of money to an 18-year-old. Are you serious? Completely serious, my father said. But there are conditions. Conditions we think are reasonable, but we want to be upfront about them. What conditions? My mother leaned forward. Jenny, you're about to enter a whole new world. Freedom, independence, new experiences. We're excited for you, but we're also worried. We've seen too many bright young women derail their futures by getting pregnant too young. We don't want that to happen to you. I'm not going to get pregnant. I'm going to be focused on school. We know you think that now, but things happen. People make mistakes. We just want to ensure you're being careful. So you want me to promise not to get pregnant? We want you to promise to use reliable birth control, my father corrected. And to prove that you're using it, quarterly checkups with documentation from your doctor. That's all. It seemed reasonable at the time. I was planning to go on the pill anyway. College boys weren't exactly trustworthy with condoms. And $10,000 a year would pay for everything: textbooks, food, maybe even a spring break trip. Okay, I said. That seems fair. My father pulled out a contract. We just need to formalize it. Make sure we're all on the same page about expectations. I should have read it more carefully. I should have asked questions about the language, about the duration, about what indefinitely meant. But I was 18 and excited and trusting. I signed without really reading beyond the basics. That contract governed my life for the next 17 years, and I never questioned it once. UCLA was everything I hoped it would be. Big campus, diverse students, endless opportunities. I declared a major in marketing, joined a few clubs, made friends with my roommate Hannah. Life was good. The money from my parents helped enormously. Every quarter, I'd go to the student health center for a checkup, get documentation that I was still on birth control, and email it to my parents. A few days later, $2,500 would appear in my account. It became routine, easy. just part of how my relationship with my parents worked. I dated casually throughout college. A few guys here and there, nothing serious. None of them ever progressed to the let's talk about our future stage, which was fine. I was focused on school, on building my career, on figuring out who I was. After graduation, I moved to San Francisco for a job at a marketing firm. The money from my parents continued. It helped me afford a decent apartment in an expensive city. It supplemented my entry-level salary. I was grateful for it. Looking back now, I can see how they shaped my choices. Every time a relationship got serious, my mother would find reasons to be concerned. He's not ambitious enough. He's too focused on his career. He has too much baggage from his previous relationship. Subtle discouragements that made me second-guess every connection. And whenever I mentioned wanting kids someday, she'd remind me of all the things I still wanted to do. Travel more, advance my career, buy a house first. There was always a reason to wait, a reason to be practical, a reason to keep taking the money and staying on birth control. I dated Marcus for 8 months when I was 29. He was divorced, had 2 kids from his previous marriage, and was very open about wanting more children. For the first time in my life, I seriously considered it. Marcus was stable, kind, a great father. Maybe this was my chance to build the family I'd always vaguely wanted. But my parents were relentless in their opposition. Marcus was too old for me, they said. His ex-wife was difficult. Did I really want to be a stepmother? Did I really want to deal with that baggage? We broke up after 6 months. My parents took me on a vacation to Hawaii to help me recover. The $10,000 that year came with a bonus, an extra $5,000 for making good choices. I didn't connect the dots. I didn't see the pattern. I just thought my parents were overprotective, concerned, looking out for me. I met Ryan when I was 33. He was a software engineer, stable and emotionally available in a way that felt revolutionary after a string of unavailable men. We clicked immediately. He was funny and kind and made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. My parents' reaction was lukewarm at best. They were polite when they met him, but distant. No glowing approval. No, he's perfect for you. Just a careful, measured, he seems nice. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't willing to let my parents' opinions dictate my choices. Ryan and I got engaged 6 months after we started dating. We set a wedding date for the following spring. We started talking about kids, maybe 2, maybe 3. We wanted to start trying right after the wedding. My mother asked to speak to me alone after we announced our engagement. We went to a coffee shop near her house, ordered lattes, sat by the window. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "You've only known him 6 months." "I'm sure. Mom, he's the one. I know it sounds fast, but when you know, you know. And children? You're really ready for that? You're only 34. Only 34? That's not young for having kids. If we want multiple children, we need to start soon." Her face paled. "What if you waited? Enjoyed married life first? You haven't traveled much. You and Ryan could take a year. See the world. We've already talked about it. We want to start trying right after the wedding." "But Jenny," she stopped herself, visibly swallowing whatever she'd been about to say. "Just think about it carefully. That's all I'm asking. Don't rush into anything." The conversation bothered me. My mother had always been practical, sometimes cold, but never frightened, never desperate. But I pushed the concern aside. Wedding planning consumed my attention. Venue booking, dress shopping, guest lists. The quarterly money kept coming. I'd been on birth control for 15 years at that point. It was so automatic I barely thought about it. Doctor's appointment, documentation, payment, routine. Until December, when I went to see Dr. Harrison for what should have been a standard visit. "Actually," I told her, "I don't need a renewal. Ryan and I are getting married in April. We'd like to start trying for a baby right after." Dr. Harrison smiled. "Wonderful. Let me give you some information about preconception health. We went through the standard advice. Stop birth control now to let my cycle regulate. Start prenatal vitamins. Avoid alcohol. Basic stuff. One more thing, Dr. Harrison said, pulling up my file. I see your mother requested we send her visit summaries. Should we continue that after you stop birth control? I froze. My mother gets my visit summaries? Yes, you authorized it back in 2008. It's pretty common for parents who are paying for healthcare. Though at 33, you might want to update it. What exactly has my mother been receiving? Just confirmation of your appointments and that you're compliant with birth control. Nothing detailed. Something cold settled in my stomach. Has she ever requested other information? Dr. Harrison checked my file. Actually, yes. Last month, she requested a genetic screening panel. She said you'd approved it for family planning purposes. I never approved that. Her expression shifted. But we have a consent form with your signature. I didn't sign it. She turned her monitor toward me. There was indeed a form with what looked like my signature, but I'd never seen it before. Never signed it. Someone forged this, I said, my hands shaking. I'll need to report this to compliance. But Jenny, since this is about your own genetic information, I can tell you the results if you want. Please. The panel flagged an X-linked dominant mutation. It's very rare, associated with a neurological condition that can manifest in adulthood, particularly in women after pregnancy. You're a carrier. What does that mean? I'd recommend genetic counseling to understand it fully. But from what I'm seeing, you carry a mutation that could potentially affect neural function. The severity varies widely. Some carriers never develop symptoms. And others? Others can experience significant neurological changes. It's hard to predict without more information. I left that appointment in a daze. My mother had been secretly monitoring my healthcare for 15 years. She'd forged my signature to run genetic tests. She'd known about this mutation and never told me. The contract, the money, the emphasis on birth control, it had never been about responsibility or education. It had been about preventing me from ever having children, from ever activating whatever genetic time bomb I carried. I should have confronted them immediately, but I didn't. Instead, I went home and started researching X-linked mutations, neurological conditions, hereditary diseases. I spent hours reading medical journals, case studies, forum posts from people with rare genetic conditions. Some conditions were manageable, others were devastating. Without knowing the specific gene involved, I couldn't determine what I was facing. But I could see why my parents might be scared enough to manipulate me for 17 years. Ryan came home and found me surrounded by printouts and laptop screens filled with medical terminology. What's going on? I told him everything. About Dr. Harrison's revelation, about the forged consent form, about the genetic mutation. He listened, his expression growing darker. So your parents have been secretly monitoring your healthcare and testing your genetics? For 17 years. That's insane. And illegal. You could report them for this. I need to understand what this mutation means first. What I'm actually dealing with. We decided to wait until after the holidays to confront my parents. Christmas was 2 weeks away. We'd all be together. I could ask questions, demand answers. But then, 5 days before Christmas, everything accelerated. I threw up, just once, on a Tuesday morning. I assumed it was food poisoning or stress. But Ryan, practical as always, suggested I take a pregnancy test. I've only been off the pill for 3 weeks. That's too soon. Just take one. Rule it out. I took it. 2 pink lines appeared immediately. I was pregnant, despite having just stopped birth control, despite all the statistics saying it takes months for fertility to return, despite 17 years of my parents' planning, I was going to have a baby. We decided not to tell anyone until after the first trimester, but at Christmas dinner, with my whole family gathered, Ryan couldn't contain his excitement. "We're pregnant!" My father dropped his fork. My mother went absolutely white. The warm, loud room fell into dead silence. "What?" my mother whispered. "We're having a baby. I know it's earlier than planned, but we're thrilled. You're going to be grandparents." My father stood up so abruptly his chair fell over. He walked out without a word. My mother sat frozen, staring at me like I'd just announced my own execution. "Mom, aren't you happy?" She blinked, seemed to come back to herself. Of course. Of course we're happy. It's just unexpected." My mother asked to speak to me privately. In the kitchen, she grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "You can't have this baby." "What?" "Jenny, please. You have to listen to me. You cannot have this child." "Why would you say that?" "Because I know things you don't. I know what will happen. You have to terminate this pregnancy." "I'm not getting an abortion." "Mom, what the hell?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I don't want you to end up like your grandmother, like my sister, like every woman in our family who made the same choice." "What choice? Having a baby?" "Having a daughter. Jenny, there's something in our family, something genetic, but also something more. Women who have daughters, they change, they deteriorate. I've watched it happen. I've lived in fear of it my entire life." "That doesn't make sense. Genetics don't work that way." "I know it doesn't make sense, but I've seen it. My mother was normal until she had me. Then within 2 years, she was institutionalized. My sister was fine until she had her daughter. Then she lost her mind so fast we couldn't stop it. This isn't just genetics. This is something else." "Like what?" "I don't know, but I made sure you'd be safe. The money, the contract, it was all to protect you, to keep you from ever having daughters. And it worked. For 35 years, it worked. But if you have this baby, if it's a girl, what if it's a boy? Then I'm safe, right?" She hesitated. "Yes, if it's a boy, you're safe. The pattern only affects mothers of daughters. Then we'll find out the sex. If it's a boy, no problem. If it's a girl, we can discuss options." I didn't mean it. I was buying time, trying to calm her down, but she seized on it. "Yes, find out the sex. But Jenny, if it's a girl, you have to believe me. You have to terminate. I will not watch you die the way I watched my mother and sister die." I left that dinner early. In the car, I told Ryan everything my mother had said. "That's insane," he said. "Your mother is having some kind of break. She needs help." "What if she's right?" "She's not right. Genetics don't cause selective psychosis based on the sex of your offspring. That's not how biology works." But I couldn't shake the fear. That night, unable to sleep, I drove to my parents' house while they were out. I let myself in with my key and went straight to the basement. That's when I found the filing cabinet. That's when I learned the truth. Now, 3 days later, I'm sitting in our apartment with Ryan, trying to process everything I've learned. The genetic mutation is real that's confirmed by medical testing, but the pattern my mother described seems impossible. Genes don't work that way. Except, what if they do? What if there's something about this specific mutation, something researchers haven't identified yet, that only activates under certain conditions? Pregnancy hormones affecting gene expression, fetal cells crossing the placenta and triggering changes in maternal brain chemistry. I have an appointment with a genetic counselor next week, but I already know one thing for certain. I'm going to have this baby. Boy or girl, I'm going to see this pregnancy through. Because I refuse to let fear make my decisions for me. I refuse to let a pattern that might be coincidence dictate my life. And I refuse to let my parents' manipulation continue for one more day. At my 8-week ultrasound, I ask about early sex determination. "Curious already?" the tech asks with a smile. "Very. You can do a blood test at 10 weeks. Non-invasive prenatal testing. It'll tell you the sex with near certainty. I schedule it immediately. The day the results arrive, I sit in my car in the lab parking lot for 30 minutes before opening the envelope. According to my mother's theory, this piece of paper determines my fate. I tear it open, Female. I'm having a daughter. For a long moment, I just sit there, staring at the word. Then I drive to my parents' house. My mother opens the door, takes one look at my face, and starts crying. No, please tell me it's not. It's a girl. She collapses against the doorframe. My father appears behind her, his face gray. Come inside, Jenny. We need to talk. We sit in their living room. My mother can't stop crying. My father looks like he's aged 10 years. I'm so sorry, he says. I'm so sorry we didn't tell you sooner. We thought if you never knew, if you never had a daughter, you'd be safe. Safe from what? A genetic condition that might not even affect me? A pattern that might be coincidence? It's not coincidence, my mother says fiercely. Jenny, I've studied this for 30 years. Every woman in our family who has a daughter develops symptoms. Not might develop, will develop, but you didn't. You had me, and you're fine. Because I expected it. Because I prepared for it. Because I've spent every day for 35 years managing symptoms you don't even know about. What symptoms? She laughs bitterly. Intrusive thoughts, paranoia, dissociation, moments where I don't recognize myself. It's manageable, barely, with medication and constant vigilance. But it's there. It's always been there. Then why did you have me? If you knew this ran in the family. We didn't know, not before you were born. My symptoms started when you were about 18 months old. That's when we started investigating. By then, it was too late. You existed, and we had to figure out how to protect you by controlling my entire life. Yes, my father says simply, by making sure you never went through what your mother has lived with. Well, it's too late now. I'm pregnant. I'm having a daughter, so what happens next? My mother reaches for my hand. Please, Jenny, it's not too late. You're only 8 weeks along. The procedure is simple. You can try again, have a boy next time. I'm not terminating this pregnancy. Then you're condemning yourself, she shouts. Don't you understand? You will lose your mind. You will become someone else, someone dangerous. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be different. Maybe modern medicine can help. Maybe just knowing what to expect will be enough. That's what they all thought, my mother whispers. That's what my sister thought right up until she tried to drown her own daughter. I stand up. I'm having this baby, and you can either support me or stay away. Your choice. I walk out. Behind me, my mother is sobbing. My father calls after me, but I don't stop. Over the next few weeks, I throw myself into research. I find a therapist who specializes in health anxiety. I consult with genetic counselors, neurologists, psychiatrists. Everyone agrees. The mutation is real, but the mechanism isn't well understood. Some carriers never develop symptoms. Others do, but with proper monitoring and treatment, they manage. I start keeping a journal, documenting my thoughts and feelings, so I'll have evidence if things start to change. I establish a support system, Ryan, my therapist, my doctors. I make plans for what to do if symptoms develop. And slowly, the fear begins to fade. Not disappear, but become manageable. Pregnancy continues. My daughter grows. I feel her kick, see her move on ultrasounds. She's real. She's mine, and I'm going to meet her soon. My parents send gifts, money, cards with apologies and pleas to reconsider. I ignore them all. At 20 weeks, during my anatomy scan, the tech pauses on an image of the baby's brain. Let me get the doctor, she says, her voice carefully neutral. Dr. Williams comes in and studies the ultrasound. I want to show you something. This is your baby's brain. See this area here? She points to a region I can't make sense of. There's an unusual structure, not abnormal necessarily, but different. What does that mean? I'm not sure. It could be a normal variation, but I'd like a specialist to take a look. The specialist, Dr. Chen, examines my baby extensively. When she's done, she has a strange expression. Your daughter has what appears to be an additional neural structure in her temporal lobe. It's small, but definitely present. It looks like normal brain tissue, just extra. Is she going to be okay? I don't know. But Jenny, I looked into your genetic testing. The mutation you carry affects neural development. It's possible this structure is related. So she has the mutation too? More than that. I think she was born with something that you'll develop. The structure isn't a defect. It might be an adaptation, an evolution. And if I'm right about the mechanism, carrying her is triggering the development of a similar structure in your brain. The words don't make sense at first. Then, slowly, they start to click. You're saying pregnancy is causing my brain to change? I'm saying the presence of a fetus with specific genetic expression might be activating dormant neural pathways in you, switching on structures that were always there but not functional. Is that even possible? Pregnancy causes significant changes in maternal brain structure that's well documented. What you're experiencing might be an extreme version, and that might explain your family's pattern. Not mental illness, neural transformation. Over the next few months, I watch it happen. The changes, the moments of disorientation, of feeling slightly other than myself. Not worse, just different. And I realize my mother was right about one thing. Something does happen when you carry a daughter with this mutation, but she was wrong about everything else. It's not deterioration, it's development. It's painful and confusing and sometimes frightening, but it's not madness. My daughter is born at 37 weeks, 6 pounds, dark hair, perfect. We name her Lily. The first weeks are normal, exhausting but normal. And then, at 6 weeks, I feel it. A shift, a door opening in my mind. I can feel what Lily feels. Not telepathy exactly, but a connection, a synchronization. Dr. Chen runs tests. MRI scans show the neural structure has continued to develop. I have what Lily has, and our brains are linked. It's overwhelming. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. But it's not the curse my mother feared. Over the next months, we figure it out together. The connection is strongest when we're close, fades when we're apart. As Lily grows, it becomes more sophisticated. By 6 months, I can feel her emotions. By 9 months, I can sense her needs before she cries. My mother comes to visit when Lily is 14 months old. She holds her granddaughter carefully. You're managing it better than I thought. You had this with me? Yes, but I didn't understand it. I fought it. That made it worse. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? She's right. I wouldn't have. I spent 30 years on medication trying to suppress it, she says, to maintain my separate identity. But I lost something too. The closeness we could have had. Do you still feel it? The connection? Sometimes. Faint now that you're grown. But yes, I look at Lily, sleeping in my mother's arms, at this connection we share, this gift I almost refused out of fear. It's not a curse, I tell my mother. It never was. I know that now, but I didn't then. And I'm sorry for the years I took from you, the years I spent afraid instead of embracing what we had. Lily is 5 now. The connection has evolved into something profound. We're separate people, but linked at a fundamental level. And I've learned that what my family called a curse is actually a capability, a form of bonding that goes deeper than normal. The genetic counselors have published papers about us. Other families with similar patterns have come forward. With understanding and support, none have experienced the tragic outcomes that haunted earlier generations. I think about the $10,000 a year my parents paid me, 17 years of manipulation. I should be angrier, but I understand. They were protecting me the only way they knew how. Last week, Lily asked me, will I have this with my kids someday? If you have daughters, yes. She smiled. I want daughters. I want to share this with them. And I realized, the curse is broken. Not because the condition went away, but because we understand it now. We see it as a gift instead of a disease. My parents named their fear and built their lives around preventing it, but they were wrong about what it was. Sometimes what we fear most is exactly what we need. Sometimes breaking the curse just means changing the story. I changed my story, and now my daughter gets to write hers differently. That's worth more than any amount of money.